Aisha Kahlil, you have been with the group for how long?
Since 1981.
1981. How did you come to Sweet Honey in the Rock?
Well, I had come to Washington, D.C. from New York, where I was living. And I came through to work with a group called Brother Odd and the Sounds of Awareness as a singer, dancer, and percussionist, going on a tour to Africa and Europe. And then midway through rehearsals, the tour fell through, and I ended up kind of being in Washington. So I got several jobs. I got a job teaching at the D.C. Repertory Theater. I got a job teaching at the Kung Fu Studio of dance. And then I got a job at the health food restaurant. And that's where I met Evelyn Mariah Harris, who was a member at the time. And somehow she came over to me and asked me about auditioning, and which I did. I came to Sweet Honey and auditioned, and I've been with the group ever since.
And what has it meant in your life?
Oh, it's meant everything. It's meant complete evolution for me. It's meant quite a bit of growth. And it's just a way of life, of being conscientious and totally opening up more and more doors inside of yourself about your own evolution and how you're going to live your life and being committed to that.
Your sister is also in the group?
Mm-hmm.
The youngest member of Sweet Honey in the Rock. How did you bring her into it, or did you?
Well, she was living in Senegal at the time, in Africa, and it was kind of time for her to come back home. We all went and were like, come home. Either you come home or I'm going over there. We're going to live together. So I had gotten involved in Sweet Honey, and I was telling her about it, and so she finally did come home, and we're kind of wondering what we're going to do. So I said, well, come on to Sweet Honey and audition, the same way Evelyn pulled me. So she did, and first she didn't want to join, but eventually we kind of talked her into it, and she's been here ever since.
Nitanju Bolade Casel.
Yes.
How long did you live in Africa, in Senegal?
For about 4.5 years.
And what brought you there?
Vacation. Well,
may we all have such long vacations.
I was living in Boston before I went, and I was the artistic director of a company called The Art of Black Dance and Music. And it's actually really interesting to me because I find that Aisha and I, we're 11 months apart. And through our lives, we go through very similar situations, even though we may not be living even in the same state. So when she came to Washington, I think it was 1981 or 1980, somewhere around there. Around the same time, I was in Boston, and I was artistic director of this company, but at the same time, I was singing with a Haitian band, and we were going to go on tour. And so I quit all of my teaching jobs, packed up this trunk, and I was ready to go on tour, and the promoter went to Haiti and never returned. And so the director of the dance company I was in said, well, Nitanju, since you're all packed, one of our teachers who was from Senegal was going home, and she said, why don't you go with him and do research for the company for 6 weeks? I said, wonderful, I will go. And I went and started living with the family and just got totally into being there. And around the 4th or 5th week, I had no desire to return to Boston, and expressed that to him. His name was Raymond Silla from Guinea, grew up in Senegal, and he got me a job. And so I just stayed, you know, as an artist, singing, dancing, doing research, and I stayed there for almost 5 years.
Can you describe Run?
Run is a song that I wrote that actually had been brewing for a long time. When I was in Boston, a friend of mine, she wasn't even really a friend at that time, she was another dancer that I was just getting to know, came to my apartment one night, knocking on the door, and said that her boyfriend was beating her up and she needed a place to stay. And I let her in, and we are best friends to this day. And she really believes that her making a move was what saved her life. And it's interesting because we still talk about that time. You know, she still, it's very present in her spirit. She's, you know, she's married now, she has children, but that particular point in her life is a very dark one. And then just over time, I would hear so many stories about, especially women, in a situation that has just become terrifying. And I would just want them so badly to leave, and I would just sit there and say, oh, if I could just give them a plan of how to do this or just something. And so just out of that anger about the situation that it even exists, that there's just somewhere written that, you know, men could beat women with a stick or only so wide, or just the notion that you could live with someone or be with someone who would just destroy your life like this, and then somehow call it love, and somehow apologize, and somehow turn you all around so you feel like you have to keep returning to it. So that's where the song grew out of.
Would you all sing it?
No one has the right to hurt me, especially when they say they love me. Apologies don't make anything better, so I'll take my love and my life and leave today. Run to a shelter, run to a friend, run for my life before it comes to an end. Run to a shelter, run to a friend, run for my life before it comes to an end. I am gonna run far away from here. No more cussing, no more fighting and living in fear. I am gonna run far away from you. I have come to my senses and I don't need you. I am gonna run, gonna leave you today. 'Cause I know there's got to be a better way. I'm gonna run, take my children's hand. We are leaving this nightmare as fast as we can. I don't even know in which direction I should go, but I'm sure it's the right thing to do. It's time to make a move. The first time I was shoved, I should have been out of the door, but I accepted the apologies, opened myself up for more. Excuse me. I don't have to live this way. I'm leaving you today. Excuse me. I don't have to suffer anymore. I'm walking right out of that door. Run to a shelter, run to a friend, run for my life before it comes to an end. Run to a shelter, run to a friend, run for my life before it comes to an end. Some of my so-called friends advise me to stick around. They're not the ones getting curved, slapped, or beaten down to the ground. They say financial security is hard to come by for a woman like me, and for my children I need a good home. So I should sacrifice till they're grown. No, 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 no. I don't have to suffer anymore. I'm walking right out of that door. I don't have to live this way. I'm leaving you today. I am gonna run far away from here. No more cussing, no more fighting and living in fear. I am gonna run far away from you. Far away from you. I have come to my senses and I don't need you. No, 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 I'm gonna run, gonna leave you today. But I know there's got to be a better way. I'm gonna run, take my children's hand. We are leaving this nightmare as fast as we can. Now I don't blame myself for the present situation, for this kind of behavior. There is no justification. I'm looking ahead to the future. I won't forget the past. I won't repeat this part of my life is over and late. I don't have to suffer anymore. I'm walking right out of that door, that door, that door, that door, that door, that door. I don't have to live this way. I'm leaving you today. I am going to run far away from here, far away from you. No more, no, 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 far away from you. I have come to my senses. I don't leave you. I no, 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 leave you today. Leave you today. I know there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. I'm gonna take my children to we are leaving this nightmare as fast as we can. Run to shelter, run to a friend. Run for my life before it comes to an end. Run to a shelter, run to a friend. Run for my life before it comes to an end. Gotta run, you gotta run. She'd better run. Don't stay another day, not another minute, not another hour, not another second. No, 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 no.
Sweet Honey and the Rock, our hour special here on Democracy Now! Their website, sweethoney.com. Ours is democracynow.org. If you'd like to get a video copy of today's program, you can call 1-800-881-2359. That's 1-800-881-2359. This special edition of Democracy Now! Is directed by Uri Galed, edited by Elizabeth Press. Democracy Now! Is produced by Chris Abrams, Mike Burke, Angie Karen, Sharif Abdel-Quddus, Anna Noguera. Mike DeFilippo is our engineer. Angela Alston, Emily Kunstler, Orlando Richards, Simba Russo, Rafael De La Uz, Gabriel Weiss, Johnny Sender, Karen Ranucci, Fatima Mojadidi, Dennis Moynihan, Jenny Filipazzo, Mark Mallory, and Eddie Stein also worked on today's program. Tomorrow on Democracy Now!, part 2 of our interview with Sweet Honey and the Rock. They'll sing a song we've played many times in recent days on Democracy Now!, Would You Harbor Me? I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for listening.
Run for my life before it comes to an end.